The fire that has gripped Los Angeles over the past several days is unlike any wildfire the city has experienced before. As the flames rage across the hillsides, homes are being reduced to ash at an alarming rate, with families left in a state of disbelief. It's not just the scale of the destruction that sets this fire apart, but the speed with which it has spread and the way it has infiltrated areas once thought to be safe. Unlike other fires, which could often be contained by firefighters using strategic efforts or by natural barriers, this fire has shown no such restraint. The winds, driven by a combination of rising temperatures and dry conditions, have carried the flames far beyond what anyone had anticipated. The once charming, expansive homes in the foothills of the city now lie in ruins, their foundations charred, their histories lost in a matter of hours. For the residents who have lived in these neighborhoods for generations, it's a devastating blow, a loss that cannot be measured simply by the destruction of property. It's the loss of a way of life, of a community, of a place they once considered home. The irony, of course, is that many of these same residents have lived through wildfires before. Los Angeles is no stranger to the threat of fire, and most people living in the outskirts of the city are well aware of the risks. Yet, this fire has felt different from the others. There is a sense of finality to it, a feeling that things have changed in ways that can never be undone. For years, experts have warned that the city's continued sprawl into wildland areas would inevitably lead to greater losses in the face of fires. The hills that surround Los Angeles have always been prone to drought, but it's been only in recent years that those droughts have become more severe, turning a city once famed for its year-round sunshine into a tinderbox waiting for a single spark. It's a reminder of how quickly things can spiral out of control, despite the countless hours of preparation and resources poured into combating these disasters. It isn't just the fire that's been unstoppable, it's the compounded effect of climate change, urbanization, and a failure to address the underlying issues that contribute to the rise in these catastrophic fires. While some might look at this as just another disaster to rebuild from, there is an undeniable sense that the city is facing something more complex, more sinister. The fire is a direct reflection of a changing world, one in which climate change has become an inescapable force, reshaping the way cities function and how communities survive. The fact that this fire is so much worse than the others highlights just how much worse things are getting, how much quicker the world is changing, and how woefully ill-prepared Los Angeles was for this kind of disaster. For the families forced to evacuate, the experience has been one of pure panic and uncertainty. Roads that were once pathways to safety have turned into congested nightmares, where entire neighborhoods once considered safe havens are now being overtaken by the fire's relentless advance. The evacuation centers, once equipped to handle a smaller number of displaced individuals, have quickly become overcrowded, with people fighting for limited resources and struggling to find any semblance of stability. The chaos that erupts during such moments is overwhelming, as families, already stripped of their homes and possessions, are now tasked with navigating the confusion of evacuation, with little to no idea of what to expect in the coming days. For those who have lost everything, the trauma is immeasurable. It's not just the fear of losing one's home, but the realization that everything that once provided a sense of permanence, the walls that protected, the memories that filled the space, is now gone. In many ways, it's as if the fire has erased entire histories, leaving only the hollow remnants of a once vibrant community. And yet, amid the chaos, the response from local communities has been a mix of heartening resilience and gut-wrenching helplessness. Neighbors have come together to help evacuate those who need it, even as they themselves are unsure of what awaits them when they return to their own homes. Volunteers, firefighters, and emergency responders have worked around the clock, fighting the flames with a bravery that can only be described as heroic. But even they have acknowledged that this fire has stretched their resources beyond the breaking point. The scale of the destruction is simply too vast, the fire too aggressive. The firefighters, who typically rely on their years of training and experience to battle these kinds of blazes, have been forced to confront an entirely new set of challenges. They've been faced with rapidly shifting winds and unpredictable weather patterns that make it nearly impossible to predict where the fire will strike next. In many cases, they have been forced to abandon efforts to save individual homes in the path of the fire in favor of trying to prevent it from jumping into other regions of the city, regions that were thought to be safe, where the fire should have been contained. This type of fire behavior has put an enormous strain on the city's firefighting resources, which have been stretched thin due to the sheer magnitude of the fire. The same agencies that typically respond to smaller wildfires and provide mutual aid to neighboring areas have found themselves fighting a battle they were never truly prepared for, one that calls into question whether the traditional methods of firefighting are still sufficient in an era of climate change and rapid urbanization. The fire's progression is not just a testament to the limits of current firefighting strategies, but a warning sign that Los Angeles and many other cities around the world may need to reconsider their approach to disaster preparedness entirely. The fire has laid bare the weaknesses in the city's infrastructure, in its preparedness for this new normal. The burning question that many are asking now is whether the systems in place will ever be enough to confront the reality of what the future holds. What happens when even the most sophisticated firefighting methods can't stop a blaze that has become too large, too fierce, and too unpredictable to manage? The aftermath of the fire will undoubtedly leave deep scars on the people and the landscape of Los Angeles. The physical destruction is easy to see. Homes have been lost, businesses have been shuttered, and entire neighborhoods are now little more than ash and rubble. But the emotional toll is far harder to quantify. For many, the fire represents the end of an era, the end of a community that they had come to know as home. There is no simple way to rebuild what has been lost, and it will take years for the city to fully recover, both physically and emotionally. The impact of this fire will be felt for generations to come, as the people of Los Angeles come to terms with the reality of living in a world where these kinds of events are becoming more and more frequent. What makes this fire so much worse than the others is not just its sheer size or intensity, but the realization that the city is facing a new kind of danger, one that cannot be ignored or mitigated with old strategies and responses. This is a fire that forces us to reckon with the fact that the future we once imagined may no longer be possible. And as we rebuild, we must ask ourselves, will we continue down the same path that led us here? Or will we take this as an opportunity to change, to rethink how we live, how we build, and how we prepare for the next catastrophe? The fire may be over, but the lessons it has imparted will stay with us forever. Stay informed and updated. Subscribe now for more insights and updates.